I am Rudolf Erasmus from the University of the Witwatersrand and SAIP Council member hosting this webinar. Today's presentation will be recorded and the recording will be made available on the SAIP Facebook page shortly after the conclusion of the presentation. Attendees are requested to pose any questions they may have after the presentation when I will facilitate the question and answer session. Now, the purpose of these webinars hosted by SAIP is to communicate on a wide range of topics that are relevant to physicists. And today's presentation is by Dr. Bharati Naik, who is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of the Witwatersrand and the South African ALICE collaboration at Itemba Labs in Cape Town. Dr. Naik obtained her doctorate in 2021 from the Indian Institute of Technology in Bombay, India. She was highly involved in teaching the laboratory course entitled Nuclear Experimental Techniques and mentored undergraduate and graduate students during her PhD work. Her research work focused on heavy ion collisions, quark-gluon plasma, and heavy flavor physics. It is my pleasure to ask her to present the seminar with the title Measurement of Azimuthal Correlations of d mesons with charged particles in pp collisions at a total center of mass energy of 13 TeV with ALICE at the Large Hadron Collider. Please proceed with your presentation, Dr. Naik.
Thank you, Rudolf, for this nice introduction, and thank you so much for the opportunity. So I will not tell the title again, and so let's move on to the next slide. So before describing about the particular analysis, let me give you some basic concept. So let me start with a droplet of water. As we all know from our high school physics, that the droplet of water is made up of water molecules, H2O, and each H2O molecule is consist of several atoms. And an atom is consist of a nucleus at the center, and an electron is orbiting around the nucleus. And the nucleus is made up of neutrons and protons. So at first, people believe that electrons, protons, and neutrons are the elementary particles. But in 1964, the deep inelastic scattering of electrons and protons revealed that quarks are present inside the protons and neutrons. So neutrons and protons are not the elementary particles. The quarks are the elementary. So the quarks are the elementary particles. And the proton is consist of two up quarks, one down quarks. And the force between the quarks is the strong force. And the force carriers are the gluons. On the right side, I am showing a picture of Standard Model. So this Standard Model picture is for particle physicists, it is a periodic table for the particle physics. So the Standard Model comprises of basically unification of three fundamental forces, the strong, weak, and electromagnetic forces, and it consists of 6 quarks: off, down, charm, strange, top, bottom, or beauty, and and we have also the leptons, the electrons, muons, tau, and their corresponding antineutrino. And the force carrier, the gluons is the force carrier for the strong force, photons is the force carrier for the electromagnetic force, and the W and G bosons are the force carrier for the weak forces. So we particle physicists, we call quarks and gluons as partons, like in nuclear physics we called protons and neutrons as nucleons. So the particles mainly the hadrons are consist of these are two types, the baryons and the mesons. The baryons are consist of the made up of 3 quarks, and one of the common example is the proton, and the mesons also consist of one quark and an antiquark, and D0 is a example of meson, and it is consist of a one charm quark and one anti-off quark. So now moving to the bottom picture, This is a picture of evolution of the universe with time starting from the Big Bang. So it is believed that 13 billion years ago, the Big Bang occurred, and the universe we know to us was started to form. So after a few microseconds of the Big Bang, this is where the universe was extremely hot and dense. And as time elapsed, the hot and dense state matter started to expand and going through different phase transition. And at the same time, the universe started to cool down. So there was a phase where the quarks and gluons are weakly bound and move freely, and known as the quark gluon plasma phase. So now the question arises, so how can we study the properties of the quark gluon plasma? As Big Bang is a singular event and we cannot go back to time, then the scientists created the particle accelerator and collide heavy ions nearly the speed of the light to create a small bang in the laboratory, so which mimic the situation of the Big Bang. So moving to the next slide. So then I will just give the outline of my topic. So in the introduction, I will describe what is QCP and what are the experimental probe to the QCP, and briefly tell about the Alice detector and the physics motivation about this particular analysis. And then I will tell the methodology, which are divided in two parts. One is the D-meson signal extraction, and the other one is the correlation between the D-meson and the charged particles. Then I will show my results, and finally I will give the summary with an outlook. So, okay, so we physicists build the accelerator and the relativistic heavy ion collider RHEC, which is situated at the BNL USA, and the Large Hadron Collider LHC, which is the CERN, which is situated in the border of France and Switzerland, was made by the scientists. So the relativistic heavy ion collider RHEC, it is working since 2000, and this is the picture of the RHEC, and it has a circumference of 3.8 kilometer. And here we can collide the maximum collision energy for the gold is 200 GeV. And not only gold, we collide also the proton gold, deuterium gold, and copper, and their corresponding energy with the corresponding energy here I have mentioned. And okay, so the LHC is the Large Hadron Collider experiment, and it is working since 2010. So it has a 4 major detector: ALICE, CMS, ATLAS, and LHC-B, and it has a circumference of 27 kilometer, and it can collide maximum energy up to 5.02 TeV for the lead-lead collision. It not only collide the lead-lead, it also collide the PP, proton lead, and also the deformed nuclei like the xenon. So then how we create the QGP in our laboratory. So let's see, at the LHC, what we do, we accelerate the lead ion with a relativistic speed, nearly the speed of the light. And after the acceleration, we collide them. After the collision, a very hot, we accelerate the lead, and then we collide. So after the collision, there is a phase called the pre-equilibrium phase formed. Then after that, after the collision and the pre-equilibrium phase, a very hot dense fireball is formed, and where the defined quarks and gluons are in the deconfined state. So this phase is called as the quark gluon plasma. Here the density and the temperature is very high. So then due to the inner pressure, it start to expand, and the firewall start to expand, and the temperature started to cool down. And due to the cooling of the firewall and the strong field of the gluons, the quarks are started to combine in the doublet to form the mesons, and like pions or kaons, and or in triplet to form baryons like protons and neutrons. So and that is the phase we call as the hadronization phase. So after the hadronization phase, there is a phase where the inelastic collision between the particles stops, and we call that phase as the chemical freeze out. Here the formation of new particles totally stopped, and then after some times, when the mean free path of the particle is equivalent to the size of the firewall, the scattering of the particles between them also stops, and we call them as the kinetic freeze out. So after the kinetic freeze out, we detect them in our detectors, and we measure their charge and momentum, and we can retrace their path, and we can study the properties of the QGP. So, how can we study the properties of the QGP? Because QGP, the formation time is quite small, and the duration of the QGP also quite small. So how can we study the properties of the QGP? Then, so we study via some indirect probe. So there are many indirect probes is present. So one is the electromagnetic probe, one is the strain strength enhancement, one is the querconium separation, and one is the jet quenching. So we'll focus on the jet quenching. So while jet quenching is a strong signature of the formation of QGP. So jets are the partons that travel through the mediums and gets fragmented into the collimated spray of particles that are called as the jets. So here is a cartoon. We can see when two partons collide, then the partons fragmented into the collimated sprays of particles, and we detect their energy deposition in the calorimeter, and so this is called as a particle jet. So why jets are important? So jets is designed to be a proxy for the partons to study its kinematics. So as you know, in proton-proton collision, so jets are formed back to back due to the momentum conservation. But in Lell-Lett collision, when two jets are formed, when the medium is formed, so one jet has to travel longer path in the medium, and then one jet has to travel a shorter path in the medium. So here you can see the jet traveling towards the downwards. So it has the energy of 205 GeV, but the jet traveling towards upwards, it has an energy of 70 GeV. That means the jet is quenched here. So, and the other thing, the energy is distributed among the soft particles. So our jet is quenched in the medium. So this is a signature of the QGP. So before discussing about the analysis and showing the results, I will show some basic terminology here. One is the transverse momentum, that is the px square plus pus square root. Then pseudo rapidity eta minus ln tan theta by 2, polar angle theta, and the azimuthal angle phi. So one of the major experimental probe to study the jet quenching is the two particle correlation method. So what is the two particle correlation method? So basically we choose a trigger particle and associate particle, and we correlate between them. That is our two particle correlation method. So earlier I described when two parton collide, we form two back-to-back jets. So from one jet, if you choose a trigger particle, and the trigger particle should be the highest, should have the highest momentum in that jet. So that should be the trigger particle, and we consider all other hadrons as the associate particles. Then we find their angular difference, delta phi and delta eta, and we build the correlation peak of delta phi and delta eta. So if we choose the trigger particle and the associate particle from the same jet, then we build the near side correlation peak. This is the near side correlation peak, which will give you a peak around 0. And if you choose the trigger particle and the associate particle from the opposite side of jet, then we build the AO-side correlation peak, which will give you a peak around the pi. Then in experimental result, how the near side peak and AO side peak is looks. So I am showing here. So this is an example of head-on correlation peak, and the top figure is from the PP collision from the CMS experiment. Here they have chosen the trigger particle as from the 1 to 3 GeV per C, and here we can see at delta eta and delta phi equal to 0, we can see a near side jet peak, and at delta phi equal to pi, we can see there is a broad structure which we call as a AO-side ridge. So, and similarly for the lead non-central collision, there is in the right side I am showing the delta eta and delta phi plot. So at delta eta and delta phi equal to 0, we can see a near side jet peak here, and also there is a elongated region around delta eta, so that is all called as the near side ridge. And also in the AO side, the similarly for like PP, we can see the elongated region around along the delta eta, and we call as the AO side ridge. Then I will show some results, experimental results observed in the RIC experiment, and this is a paper from the STAR collaboration, and this measurement is the initial measurement of jet quenching studied in the STAR, and this is done in the head-on correlation technique. So let us consider the top part of this figure. So here they have shown a delta phi correlation plot of the head-on. Then here the red and the green points are the results from the D gold collision, and the black points are from the PP collision. So here we can see clearly that there is a near side peak at 0 and AO side peak at delta phi equal to pi. So now moving on to the bottom plot. So in the bottom plot, they have shown the comparison between the PP, gold, and D gold collision system. So the black points are as usual the PP results. The gold results are shown in the blue star, and the D gold results are shown in the red points. So at delta phi equal to 0, we can see the near side peak for all the three systems, but at delta phi equal to pi, we couldn't find the AO side peak for the gold collision. That means there is a clearly we are seeing there is a suppression of the AO side peaks. So what this leads to, due to the final state interaction of the partons with the dense medium produced in the gold collisions. So our jet is quenched. So this is a signature of the QZP. Then moving on to the next slides. Before showing any results of the LS detector, I will just give a brief description of the LS detectors. And so the LS detectors, some facts about the LS detector, it has a weight of 100K ton, and the dimension is 16 and 16 meter. So here you can see these are the two normal human beings, and you can imagine how big the detector size is. So, and it is situated below the ground of 56 meter, and it is not only one detector, it has 19 sub detectors. So different detectors have their different properties, and they detect different type of particles also. So the green is the inner tracking system, and the inner tracking system is used for the tracking, vortexing, and particle identification. The orange color here shows is the time of flight detector, and it is used for the particle identification. The blue one is for the time projection chamber, and it is used for the tracking and the particle identification. and the B0 detector is used for the triggering and multiplicity, and it is present in the forward direction. And the multiplicity means here is the number of charged particles produced per event. Then moving on to the next slide. So the experimental observable here to study the jet quenching effect is the IAA. So IAA is the ratio between the correlation yield in lead-lead collision with respect to the PP collision. So this is a published paper of hadron-hadron correlation of Alice results. So here 0.5% centrality in lead-lead collisions means the impact parameter between the lead-lead collision is so small, it is nearly it is approaching 0. And if we say 60 to 90% centrality of lead-lead collision means it is a peripheral collision. The impact parameter is high. So after the this is a figure of IAA as a function of associated PT. So you can see the IAA of the near side for the sorry, here the central collision, the IAA value of central collision with respect to the PP is given as the black points, and for the peripheral collision, it is showing on the red points. So you can see the IA is nearly 1 for the near side correlation, and if you move to the AOA side correlation, here you can see for the 0 to 5% lead-lead collision by the PP collision. Here you can see the IA is less than 1. That means it is nearly 0.6. That it means the most central region for the AOA side, which indicates that there is a medium energy loss. So here also our jet is quenched, and this is a signature of the QGP. So these all the things are related to the soft particles. I mean the light particles. So how you can study the QGP with respect to the heavy flavor particles? So heavy flavor particles means here the charm and beauty. They have a large masses, so they are produced in the hard parton scattering in the early stages of the collisions, like in the pre-equilibrium state. So this is a space-time evolution graph of the collision system. So here the heavy quarks are formed. So as they forms before the formation of the QGP, so they experience the whole evolution of the QGP, and therefore they act as a good tool for the characterization of the QGP. So as heavy quark while traveling through the medium, the heavy quark loses its energy via the elastic collision and also through the medium-induced gluon radiation. And the energy loss of the heavy quark is less than the energy loss of the light quarks and the gluons, and this is the relation between them. Then why we are interested in the d-hadron correlation, d-meson and hadron correlation. So actually in PP collisions, the d-hadron correlation will give us information about the production mechanism of charm to d-meson fragmentation, hadronization of the charm quarks, and it also tests for the PQCT calculation. And of course, it will act as a reference for PLAD and LED systems. And in PLAD collisions, we want to investigate the nuclear metal effects on the charm jets. And we also want to search for the long-range ridge-like structure in the near side and AOA side as observed in the hadron-hadron correlation. So this is a hadron-hadron correlation figure of the delta eta and delta phi, where we can see there is a long-range ridge-like structure observed in the near side and the AOA side correlation. So we want to study this in our d-hadron correlation measurement also. So, and where we want to study in the lead-lead collisions. We want to study the path dependence of the heavy quark energy loss and also probe QGP effects on the heavy quarks by studying how correlation distribution of heavy flavor particles are modified with respect to the PP collisions. So next, move on to the methodology. So as earlier I have told, it has two part. One is the signal extraction and other one is the correlation between D meson and the hadron. So we have chosen the three D mesons here, D0, D plus, and D star, and we reconstruct this D mesons via the hadronic decay channels with the branching ratio I have shown here. So this is a schematic diagram of D0 decaying to K minus and pi plus. So where the D0 is formed, that we call as a primary vortex, and where the D0 decaying to K minus and pi plus, we call as the secondary vortex. So in our detector, we have the information about the K minus and pi plus. So then how we'll get the information about the D0? Then we reconstruct the via the information of pi plus and K minus, we reconstruct the secondary vortex to get the information of the D0, and we plot the invariant mass distribution of the D0. So this is a typical D meson invariant mass histogram looks like. So then to find the raw yield of D meson, we fit this invariant mass distribution with a function Gaussian as a signal and the background as an exponential function. Then after getting the D mesons, then we correlate the D meson with the charged particles. So in an event, we find first the D meson, the trigger particles, then we correlate the D meson with all other hadrons present in that event. Correlate means we find the delta phi and delta eta between them. Then we found our typical correlation plot, the one-dimensional correlation plot of delta phi. Here I am showing a one-dimensional correlation plot of delta phi. So this is a measurement from the PLED, and here the trigger particle energy is from 5 to 8 GeV, and the associated particle energy is greater than 1 GeV. So here we can clearly see there is a near side peak is visible here at 0, and a over side peak also visible at pi. So to study the properties of the near side and over side correlation peak, so we fit this distribution with a constant baseline term and plus 2 Gaussian. One has a mean at 0 and the other one has the mean at pi. And we find our near side yield and width. Then we study their properties. So this is a typical event display, how it looks like. The first one is for the PP13D event display for the PP13 TeV, and the right hand side is the event display for the PLED 5.0 TeV. And we have recorded this data with different luminosity. And so here you can see the PP13 TeV data has a luminosity nearly greater than 3 times of the PP7 TeV data. So what is mean by the luminosity? Luminosity is the ratio of the number of events detected in a certain period of time to the cross section. So I have compared the results of PP7 TeV, 13 TeV, and PLED 5.02 TeV, and I am going to show that results. So here we can see this is a comparison between the three systems. The PP7 TeV are in black color, PP13 TeV in blue color, and PLED 5 TeV in red color. So the first column is for the D meson PT within 3 to 5 GeV. Second one is for the D meson PT 5 to 8 GeV. Then third one is for the D meson PT 8 to 16 GeV. And the 7 TV results are already published, and I am involved in the PP13 TV results. So here we can see for all the different PT ranges, and you can see there is a near side correlation peak is visible for all these PT ranges, and for the low PT ranges like 3 to 5 GVC, we cannot see any AOA side peak here. We need more statistics for that, so we can see the AOA side peak in the high D-meson PT, but it is also it has a high statistical fluctuation. So if you clearly see this peaks, so the height of the near side peak is increasing from increasing of the D-meson PT. So this increase is due to the Hadron multiplicity in jets with increasing jet energy, and is expected from the evolution of Parton cascade with Parton energy for both light and heavy quarks. And also we found a compatibility within the uncertainties for all the PT ranges and all the 3 systems. So so after the correlation distribution, we fitted that correlation distribution with our fitting function with the constant baseline with 2 Gaussian function, and we find our associated yield and width sigma here. So here also the PP7 TV results are in black, 13 TV results are in blue, and the PLAD results are in red. So here also, here we can see there is an increase of near side yield as we increase the D-meson PT, and it is clearly visible. And if you closely see the uncertainty in PP7 TV and PP13 TV as compared to the PP7 TV, PP13 TV's uncertainty are less. So and also you can see the width is constant as a function of D-meson PT. But if you consider this plot, there is a hint of decreasing of width as increase of D-meson PT. So that means there is a narrowing of the near side peak. But we can say there is a flat behavior within this current uncertainty. We can't say anything about that. So then we compare the results of PP13 TV with the different Monte Carlo models, that is the Pythia 6, Pythia 8, and POHEC plus Pythia, and different tunes of Pythia 6. And the different tunes of Pythia 6 has the only difference is that they have the pattern fragmentation into the hadrons is different in different tunes. And Pythia 8 is a updated version of Pythia 6, which also include the multi-pattern interaction and color reconnection. And POHEC is an NLO-based PQCD Monte Carlo event generator. So here we can see the near side peak is described quite well in all the 3 models, but on the AOA side, the POHEC plus Pythia 6 and Pythia 8 is describing the data closure and data quite well. Then we move to the comparison of near side peak yield and width with the different models, and our models describe the near side peak yield and width qualitatively well within the uncertainties for all the PT ranges. And also here the baseline is decreases as we move to higher associate PT. Then I will summarize my talk. Okay, I have shown the results of azimuthal correlation between D-mesons and charged particles in PP collisions extracted in different PT intervals of trigger and associated charged particles. And also I have shown the comparison with the different models, and it is describing quite well with the Pythia and POHEC plus Pythia. And the anticipated LSA Run 3 data taking will commence in 2022 will allows us to perform the study with better precision in different event multiplicity classes due to the higher luminosity and the improved performance in the image and reconstruction. And also with the LSC Run 3 data, we can study the correlation of LED, and this measurement is in PP, and PLED will be a fundamental reference for the LED results. And also we can look for the DD bar correlation, as it should not differ much from the angular correlation distribution of the CC quarks and CC bar quarks in PP and PLED collision systems. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much for the presentation. There's time available for questions. If anybody has a question, please raise your hand, or you can also make use of the Q&A or chat boxes that are available. Just want to open the chat box. And it usually takes a minute or two for people to type questions if they wish to do that. We'll just give it a few seconds. I'm just curious on a non-science question. Is travel to CERN possible now, or is that still a problematic?
I think we can travel next year.
Okay, all right. So because there's a point where remote work works up to a point, and then it's some point it'll be necessary to travel. So.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question from Edith. There we go. Zintle, sorry, Zintle, you should be able to unmute yourself. So
just a simple question. So what is the significance of the multi-pattern interaction?
Okay, so it's like the significance of the multi-pattern interaction, it is in the high multiplicity, it has a greater significance. So like the meaning of the multi-pattern interaction is in PP collision, it's like it is how to describe it. I mean, it is from one collision we can get different. It will divide it into different. It will fragment into different events.
So in principle, a proton is not anymore seen at these high energies. A proton is not seen as a point-like system.
Yes.
Composed only of 3 quarks, but with multiple patterns inside of them, right?
Yes.
Which makes it possible for them to interact within one another.
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you, Zintle. Any other questions for the speaker? Okay, I think that seems to be all that is in terms of questions. Nothing has popped up. So it remains to me to say thank you very much for your presentation, for preparing all the very good and interesting slides. Thank you very much to the attendees who made the time to listen to the presentation. And thank you also to the SIP office who organized this, and without whom it would be difficult to host these presentations. So thanks again to everybody. Have a good afternoon and enjoy your weekend. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.